everyone, and welcome back to another Ben 10 breakdown. Ben's had quite the list of main villains over the years. We got Vilgax, Malware, the Hybrid, Cervantes, Vilgax again, Dagon, Agrigor, Kevin 11, Vilgax again. The list goes on. But if I were to ask you who is the most notorious villain who never got a main arc, Dr. Animo always comes to mind. For someone that has never had his own major storyline, it's amazing how big of an impact this guy has made on the series. He's always had consistent motivations under the guise to experiment and take control of animals, usually followed by mutating them along with the population. Although his motivation is always the same, they do find new ways to use this character, such as using the Omnitrix to create alien hybrids, building a Chupacabra Chimera body, time traveling to team up with his past self, and even resurrecting a villain from a completely different show. Yes, all in the name of evolutionary glory. Practically all of his episodes have been memorable, along with his character designs and his magnificent performance by Dwight Schultz. He is also the only character across all 5 versions of the show to always retain the same voice actor. Not even Ben himself was able to do that. Dwight is irreplaceable as the character of Dr. Animo. And if you think Animo cares about never being a main villain, guess again. He's still gonna make his way into the movies. You just can't escape this scattered scientist. In some ways, I'd say he surpasses Vilgax in the ways he is linked to Ben. And if you want to count the pop-up trivia, he's also the first villain that was solely created by Ben just being Ben. Not to mention that the unaired test footage was based on Dr. Animo's debut episode. He may have even been the first villain fully created for the show, but that's just a theory, don't quote me on that. Anyways, Dr. Animo is an inseparable part of Ben 10, so of course he gets to return in Omniverse. And for the most part, I love what OV does with Animo. So let's take a look at Dr. Animo's return, but first, if this is your first breakdown and you're curious about how my rating system works, there's a detailed description down below, along with a link to all my previous breakdowns, but by all means watch this video first, I'm sure you'll still enjoy it. Now, let's begin. On October 20th, 2012, David McDermott returns to give us It Was Them. Ben is still getting randomly attacked by these mysterious alien creatures. In an effort to get ahead of the plot, Ben deduces that it must be Dr. Animo as it fits his motive, and visits him in prison to reveal he's escaped. After tracking him down, it turns out Dr. Animo was up to his usual shenanigans, but not for the reasons that Ben thinks. There's our first look at Omniverse's Burger Shack. Gotta say, it looks amazing in Omniverse. I love how the whole building has a lot of design to it. Fun fact, you can even find it in the Minecraft Ben 10 extension. You can catch Ash and I playing that in another video on this channel with the link below, by the way. Oh, you are in Burger Shack. Holy shit.
Is it Burger Shack? It looks like
Burger
a
Shack.
dojo.
No, this is Burger Shack, dude. Trust me. And there's Kyber again, lurking in the background, sending in Zed the past couple episodes. I love how they just give us small dosages of him every now and then to build him up as a villain proper. There's that font again. And that's a very neat looking device. Between this and the flashlight, Kyber has a pretty cool arsenal so far.
Ready, my friend.
Ooh, this leaping transformation. I forgot about this one. It's pretty cool. You don't actually see the transformation proper, but I love the motion of it. And here's our first appearance of Slamworm, who's the predator of Armadillo.
Keep an eye on my lunch, would you? Ah!
Yeah, smart move, buddy. So I haven't really talked about this much yet, but the method in which Ben rotates the holograms also changes kind of frequently. Sometimes he has to stroke the Omnitrix in order to spin the dial. Sometimes like this, you just hold it down and it keeps on spinning. I think there was a third method, and I forget it, but I'll point it out if I see it. So similar to the Ultimatrix, there's never really a concrete established way how to use the Omnitrix. The classic and Alien Force ones were pretty much the only ones with well-defined rules of how to activate the Omnitrix, but even they broke their own methods every now and then. Also, I see like this little pencil line right here. I think this is from the actual animation frame. That's really cool.
Let's make this quick, Slimy.
Oh, that dial looks pretty weird. Now, this is one of those growing transformations that I'm not a huge fan of, but there are little transformative details that makes this one a little bit more special. You can see the crystals quickly forming around him and finding their shape, clamping around his head, growing up his arm, plus the massive size difference between Ben and Diamond Head helps sell the transformation.
There's a triple cheeseburger with my name on it.
Diamond Head, after first being voiced by Jim Ward and then voiced by D. Bradley Baker, now has his third voice actor with Eric Bauza.
I don't know, but I bet it's gonna be cool.
In case you were wondering,
This is what it's like to lose. There's a triple cheeseburger with my name on it.
I think he does a pretty good job. Diamond Head's a hard alien to get wrong. And even though there are little differences between each iteration of his voice, they all more or less sound the same and fit Diamond Head pretty well. Although at first I did miss the chromastone texturing. Personally, I think it's a little disrespectful to the history he has with chromastone. But at the same time, I'm just so used to this design and it does look pretty good. It doesn't need it. I'm just a big fan of it and I kind of miss it. Slamworm hails down a bunch of goo at him. I like how it's not just a straightforward stream, it's like a barrage of attacks. But despite Omniverse being very good with detail, they still make Diamond Head just use his fists when shooting out the crystal shards. This will always upset me. That was easy. Psych. I love how this thing easily tunnels through the ground.
I came here to eat lunch, not be lunch.
Zing. Wow, that was a long pause between that and the title sequence. When nickels turn to dimes, he gets a credit line, Ben 10. Ooh, look at how his insides are rotating. And down the funnel of him, they rotate in different directions. I never noticed that before. I wonder how that works for him. And it's cool to see Diamond Head extend this outward. Stab him in the throat. And again, since Omniverse has Audio Circus on their side, he gets a lot of his old classic sound effects again, too. I missed those little mineral shimmies whenever he moves.
Bit off more than you could chew, huh?
He looks over to them to see if they're laughing. And despite the danger, they're judging him on his joke. Nice, I remember using that attack in the video game. I can do that too. Ow.
Gotcha!
And again, Kyber calls him back. Although this time Ben does have the advantage. Last time Kyber called back Zed basically when Zed was winning and it made no sense. Here it makes sense though because Diamond Head's clearly a much stronger match for Slamworm. Slamworm gets hurt by the Petrosapien crystals. Diamond Head can recover from damage easily and even trap Slamworm. This is an example of what I was looking for in the first episode when I was criticizing Kyber admiring Ben's versatility as a hero when Ben basically got his ass beat. Like this is a well-deserved retreat.
I always wait for evil villains to finish their speeches.
It's funny because lately he doesn't.
Can we skip the threats and get to the fight part?
Die, Dr. Animo.
Dude, stop saying your name. We know who you are.
You've embarrassed me, Tennyson.
He probably will.
You are beneath my notice. I wasn't finished talking yet.
But I mean, he does let them finish when he's like secretly interrogating them. Like with Fistrick, he let him finish because he wanted more info. Oh no. I was just about to say, this is the first time we've seen Ben without Rook in a long time, and then boom, there's Rook.
So this whole time you've just been sitting here?
I love that he gets louder when the door opens.
This whole time you've just been sitting here?
You should have said something.
I can't tell if that was should have or should have.
You should have said something.
And I can't check the subtitles on HBO Max anymore. Not that those were really accurate anyways.
Like, Rook, help me?
Ben's still too prideful to admit when he needs help. This man will never learn.
Seems like lately I'm getting attacked by more monsters than Tokyo.
Do you think that's because of all of Tokyo's kaiju movies, or canonically in Ben 10, Tokyo actually gets attacked by monsters? You get to decide in the comments below.
Dude, who wouldn't want the sick freaky monsters on you?
I love his bad deliveries.
There is one nutball who totally does the mutant creature thing. Dr. Animo.
I'm so glad that they did that. I don't want to go on a huge spiel about this, but I just love the fact that Ben's considering his past foes and trying to see patterns.
Guy's been after me since I was little. Freaky frogs.
Washington, D.C.
Mutant bats.
From Dr. Animo and the Mutant Ray.
Prairie dogs.
Ben 10 versus the negative 10.
You name it.
Currently in a holding cell at Plumber headquarters.
It's gotta be Animo.
Lukic and Driba. Still haven't quite gotten a proper introduction, but I like that we're seeing them too before they become important. I can't tell if this is floating because of the technology or if they just forgot to draw the base for it.
Ever since I was 10 years old.
See, if you were only watching Omniverse, stuff like this still makes it confusing on whether or not it's 10-year-old Ben or 11-year-old Ben. I get why for branding purposes, 11-year-old Ben and 10-year-old Ben look the same, but I do wish the 11-year-old one had some type of distinguished difference between him. And I know in this specific episode, Ben does say 10 years old, so of course you know that this is 10-year-old Ben. But in his other appearances when he's 11, I feel like they don't really establish that. And then in the first episode, it does 5 years later, so if you see this episode, then put the 5 years later clip together, you'd think Ben Ben is 15 in Omniverse, but then later on they refer to him as 16. I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking about so much shit that doesn't matter. I'm just saying, if you were trying to watch exclusively Omniverse, they don't really make it clear when Ben got the Omnitrix, the difference between him being 10 and 11, and the fact that he's 16 in present day. You kind of do need the extra series beforehand to fully understand the show, even though this is, in a way, an entry point for new fans. But here we see classic Animo again in the Omniverse art style. I love that they went the extra mile to design him. UAF was pretty lazy about their designs when showing characters before their time, or even during what's supposed to be the classic series. But Omniverse is more or less pretty good at it. And look at the mutant kangaroos. These are awesome designs. What is that, a big mouth on its stomach? Oh yeah, I found its model sheet, but here it's in yellow. I like it better blue.
Curse you, Ben Tennyson!
Animo is still voiced by Dwight Schultz. So happy that they kept him on. He's truly the only one that can play Animo. Although I know Ben says ever since he was 10 years old, I feel like this can only happen when he's 11 onwards. Because every appearance we've seen of Animo in Classic was very connected. I don't think there was room for in-between adventures. Although the same could be said for both Vilgax and Sascare, but Omniverse said, nope, stuff happened in between, and you're just gonna have to believe us. Just blame all the changes on the Celestial Sapiens. Who really cares?
You haven't seen the last of me!
This frog is straight out of the classic series. Just some small differences to make him fit in the OV style, but I like that they brought him back to his roots.
I'll get you if it's the last thing I do!
Big mutant snail thing. This thing is awesome.
Did he actually say those things?
Totally.
It's nice that they let him have all these stuffed animals, I guess. Plumbers still care about the mental health of their prisoners, so that's something.
See?
I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but I love the back design of the proto tool when it's connected to his shoulder. It looks really cool. In fact, the only reason why I didn't put it in 5YL is because at the time I couldn't draw it. And then during Recalibrated, I was like, well, I didn't draw it the first time. I would argue, at least for me, it's harder to animate the proto tool transforming between its different stages than drawing Ben morph from one alien to another. I think it's because technology is a lot more concrete and needs like logistical moving parts, whereas when Ben's transforming, you could just make him morph ambiguously. Maybe throw some special pizzazz in there and it'll look great.
And there has to be a vent. There always is in these places. Why is that anyway?
So that they can breathe? Oh yeah, I forgot. Ben doesn't care if people can breathe.
Ants! What are all these ants doing here?
That's a weird design, because this isn't a tunnel, this is built. Either the ants built this tunnel, or for some reason the plumbers installed a tunnel behind the toilets. Maybe to do maintenance on the toilets without having to open up the cell, so maybe it makes sense. Follow the ants. You know what would have been cool? If Animo and Clancy teamed up. -10 doesn't count. I mean like a genuine personal connection with them. I guess it can't happen anymore because from what we saw in -10, Clancy's mind is just gone. He's just a bug now. But they would have been a cool duo. I think they did Clancy too dirty and ruined any future appearances. That's a big ol' ant. A lot of these things in the Omniverse video game too. And it shot fire.
Tornadoes.
He sounds like a very strange man.
Oh, I love how the dripping of the ant's saliva creates these little flame bursts.
With swamp fire!
Yes, my boy. Echo is still pretty cool.
Echo, why am I not surprised?
He's still voiced by D. Bradley Baker, but both the performance and the vocal effects they use have been changed. And his voice already changed halfway through Alien Force. So now despite having one voice actor, he has 3 different voices.
Hey, are you okay?
You can't ground me. I'm a superpowered alien.
Why am I not surprised? Over here.
I like how when he jumps, he's able to leave behind the sound waves he already shot, and they continue forward.
And you didn't even have to ask for my help.
Alright, his new voice combined with the tunnel makes it so hard to hear him. That's neat, splitting to dodge fire. His Omniverse design is pretty cool. I like UAF's and Omniverse's Echo. He always looks cool to me. I'm pretty sure the black parts are supposed to be green and this is supposed to be black, and then it'll make the IO port. Oh, yep, I looked up his model sheet and it appears I am correct. He's doing an awful lot of retreating against this ant, though. Slamworm confidently fights with Diamond Head. One ant, better run, boy. I get that he mistransformed, but this shouldn't be hard for him. He took on a Kinoceleran with Echo. Shout his name to do a scream. All right.
Echo!
Ooh, that sounded like his old voice was mixed in there. Hold on, listen.
Echo!
Yeah, I think they were recycling old audio for that. This doesn't really look that good. The sound waves just kind of stop on the ant. It doesn't really look like they're colliding with him at all. And the ant just Explodes. All right. Also, strangely enough, this Echo isn't this one that's flipped, but they still get the IO port backwards. See how it flips when he slides across? Oh, actually, when you look at it dead on, it's 2 O ports. That's interesting.
The sound must have atomized the pyrophoric chemicals in its body.
Of course. Oh, I love the black looking ants.
Don't suppose you have a freeze ray on that thing? Fire extinguisher?
No.
No, he has a fire extinguisher. Hold on. Does he not? What? I swear to God he had one. No? What was I thinking of then? I could have sworn he had a... What? Yeah, I can't find anything. I guess I'm wrong. He should get one. Animo seems to be taking a note on Kyber on recalling his minion before the battle's over.
It gave up too easily.
I know, right? Although at least in this episode it's always plot related. Or should I say believably plot related.
Carrying machinery?
Why do you know so much about ants?
I read a fascinating guidebook by Merzel of Valdez Prime. He explained that ants are the dominant life form on your planet.
Well, depends on how you look at it.
Ants do outnumber humans and are found on every continent.
Sure, when you look at it that way, it makes sense. I also like that we're getting a lot of like the educational side of ants in here. I don't really feel like we're being taught about ants, even though we kind of are. Like if you didn't know these facts before, now you know. But usually with Animo's experiments, it's just kind of all unrealistic sci-fi stuff, and that works for me. I'm not saying we need it, but even though we don't need it, but we have it here, it makes it more interesting that Animo's using ants. Like now we know the science behind why he favors them. Whereas most of his other experiments, especially the signature frog, he just kind of does it.
Skyscraper-sized anthill.
Wow, he built this whole thing. Honestly, it must have been a pain to animate all of these freaking ants walking around with different technology, and all the ants look different too. And you can still see Bellwood out in the distance. So I guess we're in the deserts of Bellwood, but out of the way of the road. Normally when you see the outer deserts, it's always because they're driving through them. Now we're seeing a side of them far away from the main roads.
One moment, Ben.
Why right on the face?
These secretions on us will smell like members of the colony.
See, that makes it more interesting, the fact that Animo's using ants specifically. I'm loving it. That's a cool looking ant. Look at that thing.
I did not say a word.
Yeah, it seems like he's avoiding contractions like throughout this whole episode. Good for you, Rook, cleaning up your swearing habits. And we're even seeing Animo farm ants to grow more for his slave army. This is the most effort they put into the animals themselves that Animo's experimenting with. Granted, in the other scenarios, it would be hard to anyways. Like aside from his pet frog, he's just started shooting random things in the pet store. The T-Rex just happened to be at the museum. The pigeon helped him escape. The prairie dog just kind of came out of nowhere. So it's not even like he had the opportunity to do it this way before. And like I said, you don't need it. I'm really appreciating how deep they're going with Animo and the ants. Wow, that's a really cool looking thing.
Yeah!
Now, if you've seen a couple of the past videos, you'll know that I always loved Animo just as a junk man. Whenever he starts just getting like a seemingly infinite source of technology and prowess and supplies and all of that, and animals too, it kind of ruins the fact that he was just some guy who turned crazy and started creating his own homemade experiments. But upon reflection, at least with this, I guess it kind of makes sense, since he has this huge army of ants that's stealing all of their parts and putting together this special tower for him. So I feel like I can excuse it this one time, but not every time. I still much prefer Animo when he's like broke and having to put together scraps and garbage to build his contraptions.
Yes, my pets. Grow!
He's not even being watched right now. He's doing this specifically to talk to his ants.
Dr. Animo!
Ben Tennyson!
I believe this is also the first time they've actually like hunted down Animo too. All the other times they just happened to come across him, or he made himself visibly part of whatever plot's going on. But this is the first time Animo pretty much would have gotten away with it if they weren't expecting Kyber. Like Animo covered his tracks perfectly, and they wouldn't have even expected his cell if it wasn't for Zed triggering them. Animo was trying to avoid Ben completely this time, and it turns out that strategy would have worked, and Kyber's the one that got him caught.
What's the deal with sending creepy mutant aliens to kill me? Dude.
Also, as much as I love Dr. Animo's Omniverse design, I do wish they acknowledged a little bit his change from his UAF appearance to this. Because this isn't just a new costume or new art style. Like, his brain is in a jar, his skin is green again, his facial hair is different, he's a lot scrawnier, and his black lips. At least with the Riddles, they gave us that one line of, "Weren't you good guys? Yeah, but now we're bad," sort of thing, to acknowledge that UA happened, and they're just moving on. But here, they kind of just ignore Devoid entirely. And, you know, say what you want about Devoid, but I at least like when they solidify justify continuity changes. Because this is quite the leap from how he looked in UA to this. Could even just be a sly remark of Ben being like, looks like you stopped working out. And Animo just goes, silence, or something. You know, just say something about it. That's all I really want.
I don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, I hadn't planned on killing you until phase 2.
See? He's learning.
It will turn every single ant on the planet into a giant mutant. The world will be my ant farm.
So he plans to hyper-mutate all of the ants and then take control of them. Actually a pretty solid plan with how many ants there are on Earth. And by the looks of his small colony right here, he has a good handle on controlling ants. This is actually a pretty well thought out and devious plot. Good for you, Animo. And you almost managed to successfully dodge Ben and the plumbers. Speaking of Kyber,
Flush him out.
Dr. Animo, you know we can't let you get away with it.
I think Ben's fingers got cropped out right here.
That is a Cormite power core. Keep chatting. I got this.
Good for you, Rook.
Swamp fire!
Yes! No! This is a very similar shot to his debut appearance, too.
Let me tell you something, new Omnitrix that keeps turning me into the wrong thing.
Animo?
Right!
Ooh, I don't remember this music, but it's starting to sound pretty good. Also, quick thing, Wrath looks slightly different in this episode. In later appearances, his eyebrows are entirely black, and his teeth are a lot more yellow.
Destroy Ben Tennyson!
Oh, look at everything glow pink when he uses his technology. Even his chest and goggles do. Yeah, does this track ever come back? Could be a good theme for Wrath, like every time he shows up this place.
Ants can bring down any prey!
Serious butt kicking!
Oh, that's from Above and Beyond.
Serious butt kicking!
Yeah, Rook. Such a quick but buttery transition. Look at that, it flips up and switches into a new weapon. Good stuff. Rook's strong enough to hold his stance confidently while flipping an Apoplexian.
I've recovered the power core!
Let me tell you something, new alien partner that I never wanted in the first place, but I'm begrudgingly beginning to like, in spite of myself.
That's one of my favorite ones. That's a good morph from the Omnitrix back to a 10. Also, both Echo and Wrath were struggling against these ants, but Rook can one-shot them with his proto tool. This thing is seriously powerful. Well, if he aims right, I guess. Although this is the debut of Crash Hopper.
New alien!
So Crash Hopper here is voiced by D. Bradley Baker. His voice is pretty similar to Spider Monkey's, but there's enough there to distinguish it. Also, I mentioned this last time, but yes, even though this is his first appearance, technically making It Was Them chronologically take place before the last episode, So Long and Thanks for All the Smoothies, because in that episode, Ben uses Crash Hopper as if he's had him before. But again, that's just a fault on the writing. Whether you watch this in airing order or production order, there's gonna be issues. And I wasn't going to review this episode before So Long and Thanks for All the Smoothies, because it's already confusing to have two different episode lists with Omniverse. Switching around these episodes would have created a third version of the episode order, the breakdown order, I guess. And it just didn't seem worth it to add for the confusion. I say let's just take the continuity hit with Crash Hopper and then just keep watching through production order and accept that this doesn't make sense.
Face the fury of
Animo's ant suit.
the Ant King!
It's been a while since he's had a themed outfit too. I forgot how much I missed these, and this is a very cool looking one. It's much more high tech than his other ones, but I guess if he's got the ants stealing him the right parts, he'd be able to build this.
You might want to work on that name.
Who will win, Ant King versus the Void?
Crash Hopper!
Now, normally I don't like the extremely super cartoony sound effects, but I think it works for Crash Hopper. I think it's believable that it's his actual body that somehow makes that sound. That extreme boing right here.
I can set this power core to detonate. It will destroy the anthill.
Man, Omniverse just loves blowing stuff up.
I'll curse you, Ben Tennyson!
Told you he talks like that!
And here's Zed.
That's not one of mine!
This is the second villain to be falsely accused of being responsible for Zed.
Siphon, call your dog off!
He's not mine!
So Ben's met up with Zed quite a few times now, and still can't quite figure out where she's coming from. In fact, I don't think Ben knows that all those different creatures are one character yet. I think this is where he finds it out, where he sees Zed transform. Yeah, this transformation, like the last one, isn't that great, but the motion and the boarding of it helps make it look cool. This here is the predator of Crash Hopper, the first predator we see of an Omniverse alien. What's his name? Muculator or something? Muculator? Muculator. Or Muculator? Muculator's probably right. I don't know, it's one of those.
You must obey me!
This time his eyes and his chest piece don't change color with the brain. Ooh. Gross, but it's animated so well. Look at that. That's beautifully gross. And now we're seeing the effects of a predator successfully capturing its prey.
Almost done.
And he's got a cool sword. Kyber's got all the gear.
Rook, help me.
And Ben finally just outright asks for help. Good on you, Ben.
Gladly, partner.
Don't get too happy, Rook. He'll forget next time. But look at this. Rook, being one of the only Omniverse characters with pupils, does not have his pupils in this frame, though. Yeah, I love the way this liquid is animated. This one frame right here, shown for a second, but it looks so good. So much detail. Same with this one. Masterful stuff here.
The ants ought to attack it if I let nature take its course.
So we're seeing Crash Hopper jump very small distances. I feel like here he should just be able to walk. The ants are free, but they're still gigantic and mutant. So even if they survive this, there's still a bunch of wild ants around. But here we go, killing all the ants, even though they're free now and innocent. Bye. Oh, we heard a timeout sound. That hints it towards being an Omnimatrix device and not just something that transforms. It's very close to Ben's watch.
Aloysius James Animo.
Dr. Animo's full name revealed. And fun fact, James was a name that was put on the Ben 10 wiki years ago and accidentally made itself into canon. More on that in my Kevin video, which I will link down below too. It's a pretty good vid. I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of it.
You did your job. Next time.
Bringing him back to jail.
This is not your usual jubilant post-butt-kicking attitude, dude.
Rook's still saying dude. I love it.
Animo's not the guy. Did you see how it turned into the exact perfect predator?
No Omnitrix here, but isn't it interesting that Ben uses the word predator though? I feel like that's making too much connectivity for the audience. Like, it definitely moves the plot along, but also could just be showing Ben's perfect intuition on some things like this. Look at his hair. Wow.
I'll admit, someone is definitely out to get you.
Someone's always out to get him.
You haven't seen the last of me, Ben Tennyson.
And he never will. Alrighty, folks. So the plot of this, I'm gonna give a 4. I think it was done very well. I loved all the stuff with the ants. I like how Dr. Animo keeps coming back and is much smarter. Ben found out a little bit more about Kyber and Zed. And Rook and Ben are evolving more as partners, kinda. I don't know, there's really not a lot to say about it. It was just, it was a pretty good one. I know, not really the most thoughtful critique compared to some of my other breakdowns, but I think for what it was, they did a good job with it. It wasn't great, it wasn't mind-blowing, but it wasn't terrible. In fact, there was a lot of care put into it, and I think that's what helped make the episode pretty good, despite being very simple. Same reasons for the characterization. I think they're really having a good handle on Rook now. Also kind of funny how you see the misinterpretation of Earth culture to the aliens with how Rook originally thought ants were the primary species of Earth. Dr. Animo, he's hard to mess up, but that's still nothing to fret. They still got him right. And I liked Ben in this episode too. Visuals is a 4. All of the ant designs and Animo's new costume, the flashbacks, all of it looked great. But the first 2 episodes set the bar so high. And this episode, it almost lives up to it. It just doesn't reach the excitement of the top tier Omniverse visual style we have seen, but it's still pretty up there. It still looks like a great episode. Importance, I'm only gonna give it a 2 though. Ben seeing Zed transform for the first time seems like it would be significant, but it's really not. Like, it does move the plot a little bit forward, but the next time they show up, you could just deduce that Ben is catching on. You don't need this episode in order to see the Kyber arc. In fact, there's nothing really mandatory here at all. I'm just giving it a 2 because the Zed thing does count for something, and also while we're still in the early stages of Omniverse, you should have some solid groundwork episodes to build your perspective on the series off of, and this could be one of them. I wouldn't say it's entirely skippable, but it's definitely not necessary, but it deserves a watch if you got time. And entertaining, I'm still only gonna give it a 3. It's a very impressive average, but it's still average. Not everyone clicks with Animo, not everyone clicks with the smaller stories this far into the series. It's more than passable. In fact, a lot of people probably really enjoy this one. So that leaves It Was Them off with a 17 out of 25. Let's move on to the final thoughts. Last week's poll, I asked y'all if you liked the Celestial Sapiens being the reason for all the universal changes. And it seems that most people agree that yes, it's a good idea. I know it bothers some folks, but to be frank, I don't understand how it's a bad thing. Lots of shows and films have continuity errors and random unexplainable changes. But Ben 10 is a rare show where they have an actual solid reason for these. the Celestial Sapiens. Anytime there's a continuity error or contradiction, we can just blame the Celestial Sapiens, thus giving it a canon reason for the change, and makes both sides of the error canon. Is that not cool how we're able to do that? I don't know, I just don't see how it's a bad thing. But for this week's poll, we're now up to 5 episodes of Omniverse Breakdown so far, so of course I have to ask y'all which one was your favorite. The More Things Change Part 1, The More Things Change Part 2, A Jolt from the Past, So Long and Thanks for All the Smoothies, or It Was Them. Let me know what you think in the community tab when this video goes live. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and as always, keep it fizzy.